What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Another Friday, another episode of Why Are We Bullish? Killer panel tonight. Very excited for this one. This should be a good one. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you've all had if anything else, entertaining week. It's been an interesting one. Of course, this is live. Anything can happen, so I defer to my friend Bill here.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Yeah.
If you have not already, like, subscribe, share, all those things. Super important. Helps get this content in front of more eyeballs. I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your daily session.
HODL the Bitcoin.
Before we bring in our guests, let's take a look at where we are in the market right now. This is timechaincalendar.com. We're sitting at $30,452 per coin. A single US dollar will pick you up 3,284 sats. 92.13% of all Bitcoin have been mined. That's 19.35 million of them. And in terms of fees, 27 sats per byte next block. If you're willing to wait a bit, still 18 sats per byte. The mempool still full, but not as full as it has been, around 341 megabytes worth of transactions sitting there. And it doesn't look like anything is currently being purged from the mempool, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it should be all right there. Anyways, use your RBF, use Lightning, use whatever. Yeah. Act accordingly. Shout out to sponsors of the show, HodlHodl.com. If you are buying Bitcoin and you got a few things in mind that are important to you, like peer-to-peer trading, being able to get instant self-custody, and no KYC, HodlHodl is the simple solution for you. Very easy. You can sign up in minutes with nothing more than an email address. The flow is super easy. Pick a currency, pick a payment method, pick an amount, and start searching through offers. It is dead simple and pretty badass. On top of that, they do also have a lending platform in which nothing is ever rehypothecated. You can check them out. Links are down below to sign up. Now, when you do get non-KYC sats, you might want to secure that in some of the best damn hardware on the market. Everything at CoinKite is so incredible. I love my Cold Card Mark IV. Thing is an absolute beast. I've got it kicking right here in my fancy case and everything. Yeah, anyways. Thing is beautiful, but they've got tons of great stuff over at CoinKite. The tap signer, the sats card, the block clock, the open dimes, and coming down the pipe pretty soon here, the cold card Q1 looks insane. So if you want to reserve that now or check out any of the other stuff, head to coinkite.com, code BTC Sessions for 5% off everything in the store. Now, if you're looking to go beyond single sig and dive into multi-sig, Nunchuk has an awesome thing going on with their Honey Badger package. And what this is it's an assisted multi-sig setup. You can have 204 multi-sig in which they have a just-in-case key for you, and it's got baked-in inheritance planning. So you can do this all from your mobile device. It walks you through every step of the way. It works beautifully with things like the tap sign or the cold card and a whole bunch of other options. And again, yeah, that baked-in inheritance planning where your sats can get to your next of kin without you having to worry about it. And one of the cool things about Nunchuk is non-KYC. So you don't have to actually give any personal information. Everything is done in a way where that's not required of you. And that's kind of a unique thing that is differentiating from Nunchuk. So anyways, check them out. I did a full video on it, and you can check out the tutorial and maybe dive in. And finally, shout out to start9.com, your sovereign computing solution. You can set up your full Bitcoin stack here with an Embassy One or Embassy Pro, and you can run Bitcoin Core, Lightning, mempool.space, join market, all that great stuff. You can host your own data, so passwords, files, photos. You can run Noster relays and Noster clients, all kinds of great stuff. So the Embassy One is your entry level. The Embassy Pro is if you want to be hosting your whole life on the thing. There you go. That's your beefy option. So check them out, start9.com. These guys are absolute legends. And of course, coming soon to Miami Beach, Florida. I can't wait. Bitcoin 2023. What are we at? 34 days out or something like that now? Ooh, it's crazy. This is my fourth time attending. Very excited for it. It's a barrage on the census. So if you're going down, focus, know what you want to look at, know what you want to see. Try and take in as much as you can. Your time is precious down there. It's it's insane. So I can't wait to meet a ton of people down there. Anyways, if you're looking to go, 150 speakers, 15,000 attendees, 2,000 companies, it's crazy. There's so much to do and see. b.tc/conference. You can go use code btcsessions for 10% off your tickets. I'm going to be doing a workshop down there too, so be sure to check that out. I'll talk about that at the end of the show. But yeah, that's going to be a blast. It's coming. It's coming. All right. So enough of my ranting. I need to get in my guests here. Welcome to Lisa, CK, and Dennis. Thank you guys all so much for being here. I'm very excited about this show. So let's do a quick round of introductions for anybody that's watching that might be unfamiliar with you. We'll just go, who are you and what do you do? We'll start with Lisa. A little intro for yourself.
Thank you. Hi. So nice to be with you guys. I'm Lisa Hough. Most people like to say my name incorrectly, but it is Hough. Right now I'm just working for Bitcoin. I work for Level Field Financial, and we are trying to buy Burling Bank, which is the bank in the Chicago Board of Trade building, so that we can offer Bitcoin financial services to everyone, retail clients, institutional clients. Yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. And you did some work with Unchained back in the day as well, didn't you?
I did. I worked for Unchained before I came to Level Field. And what I really learned is not everybody thinks that holding your own keys is easy.
Yeah. It's a learning curve. It's a learning curve. It takes time, and that's why we're here. We're here to help people along their journey. So awesome. Well, Lisa, great to have you. Let's rotate down to Dennis. Dennis, good to see you, man. Can you give yourself an intro?
Hey, Ben, glad to be back. And I might have to change my bullishness to Bitcoiners are buying up banks here in a little bit, because that's some pretty amazing development in the space. But yeah, Dennis Porter, CEO, co-founder, Satoshi Action Fund. We also launched Satoshi Action Education, where I'm the president of that organization. We just travel around the country, state by state, trying to make sure that we educate policymakers and regulators on the benefits of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. And then we turn around and we craft public policy and try to get that passed. We've had a lot of success, but we'll probably get into that a little bit here. It's one of the main reasons I'm bullish. A lot of successful political engagement in the space right now.
Dude, you've been busy. I think back to flying down to, was it Miami 21? Was it?
It was the one right outside of that building. I mean, that building couldn't have been better that you guys had in 21. Everyone loved that one. You should go back to the open air environment. It was a great time, even though it was hot as hell in the Swan Dome. But yeah, my plane got canceled, and I had to get onto another plane and flew over to, where was it, Missouri or something, or was it like Minnesota?
Minneapolis. We ran into each other.
I had my head down with my hat on, my Bitcoin hat on, and this one guy's like, "You like Bitcoin, huh?" And I look up and it's Ben. I was like, This is crazy. I mean, you were the first person I ever met in real life that was like an active online person at the time. So I was pretty excited to go, and then we ended up sitting next to each other as well.
Yeah, so we traded seats with somebody, and we ended up just having an awesome chat flying from Minneapolis to Miami. So that was one of my, even though it wasn't at the conference yet, that was one of my great memories of that year. So I'm glad to have you on again, man. So yeah, and I'll be seeing you soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, and 30 days.
Yeah, man. Yeah. CK, welcome back. Good to see you, man. Can you give yourself an intro for anybody that doesn't know you?
What's up, y'all? CK, I work at Bitcoin Magazine, I guess the now infamous Bitcoin Magazine. We do Bitcoin Magazine print. We're about to drop one of those next week. So really excited about that. We're doing a lot of cool stuff right now in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and we're putting out the Bitcoin conference. And I've been a part of every Bitcoin conference since Bitcoin 2019. So it's been an honor to, put on the event and be a part of like so many stories in people's Bitcoin journey and story and careers. And that's why we do the event. We're trying to bring as many people together to talk about Bitcoin who are part of the Bitcoin ecosystem. So it's going to be a lot of fun, May 18th through the 20th. So excited to have BTC sessions there, and, everyone here. I think everyone's going to be there. So excited for it and excited for this chat. I got some good reasons to be bullish. So excited to get into it.
Awesome. Well, let's do that then. So everybody watching, if you're unfamiliar, this is Why Are We Bullish? Very simple premise to the show. Everybody here comes with a reason why they're bullish. It could be anything. It could be a personal experience, a news item, an app, a blog, a video that they saw. It doesn't matter, whatever tickles your fancy, but you get your chance to rant about what you're excited about. Then we all riff on it together, and then we rotate until everybody gets a turn. So really simple flow: reason, riff, rotate. And so I'm going to get started. I'm going to start with my reason for being bullish. I'll take you guys through a little journey, my line of thought, and then we'll riff on it a little bit. So I was passionate about this one, so I made some notes. So I think we're at a unique point in time right now. And so some of my bullishness is coming from the angle of pushing back against censorship. And so, censorship can come from all sides, right? Censorship can come from anyone, and that political pendulum, it swings back and forth. And with that continuous swing, I found that whoever happens to have the most political power at the time tends to be the one that exerts the power to censor views that don't agree with their own. And whoever happens to be on the receiving end of that censorship is the group that is most likely to pound the drum of freedom and anti-censorship. And that goes back and forth. Growing up as a kid in the 90s, I viewed the conservative side of the aisle as they're going to censor everything. They don't want me to watch this on TV. They want this banned from the radio, so on and so forth. Being an adult now, I see a little bit more from the opposite side of the aisle, but it's always kind of a back and forth. And it does us well to recognize that it's a bad thing no matter who it comes from. And so I think right now we're kind of living in an era that's very unique in the way that speech is now instant and global. Money has now become speech through Bitcoin in particular. The point at which the political pendulum is, and this is kind of more my personal opinion, but I think that it kind of has gone, as far left as it was going to go. And now we're starting to see like the push back to that, and kind of the pendulum starting to swing a little bit the other direction. And that swing seems to be going quicker and quicker, the back and forth from right to left. We're also seeing just about everybody questioning our institutions, right? Because we've seen a lot of polarization, and then we've seen everybody being angry in very recent memory at whoever the person in power was that they didn't agree with, whether that was 4 years ago or whether that is today. Doesn't matter. Somebody's been angry in the past 4 years. And so the reason why I think this is so unique is that I think, given the speed at which things are kind of ping-ponging back and forth, and the speed at which we see people questioning those institutions depending on what side they're on, and the inclination of those in power to want to exert some type of censorship, whether it be speech-wise or whether it be financial in nature, I think that everyone now is uniquely positioned to see a use for these technologies that grant more freedom, and freedom of speech and freedom of transacting with whoever they decide to. People are recognizing that open systems that are apolitical are important to have. And so we see that coming in the form of, obviously, like the internet, but there's definitely ways that things can be clamped down upon on the internet. But now with Bitcoin and with Noster, we're starting to see people building these solutions of, God, we really just need to be able to have open discussions and sort things out through reasoning as opposed to silencing. And so the reason that I got on this line of thought was because of this dude here. and there's something that I just noticed about an hour before I came on this call. So I can't recall. How do you say his last name? Matt Taibbi? Is that how you say it? Do you know?
I thought it was Taibbi.
Taibbi? Okay. All right.
Or Taibbi.
Yeah, something along those lines. Anyways, he's basically was one of the journalists that was, putting out was tasked with going through the data and putting out the quote unquote Twitter files of everything that kind of went on behind the scenes and some of the censorship that happened there. Well, Elon basically tasked him and some other journalists to go and do this. But then just in the last couple of days, him and Elon have had a falling out because he was posting on Substack, and Elon was not a big fan of, I guess, these other platforms being utilized or being advertised within Twitter, and having users funneled out to other alternatives. And Substack has added a way of chatting that's very reminiscent of a Twitter feed. So it's direct competition or is becoming direct competition. So the reason I bring this up is because lo and behold, here's Matt on Noster as of like yesterday. And it is him, because here's a Substack, and here's him saying, for those asking, yes, that is me on decentralized social media protocol Noster. And so Matt's not only recognizing the value of getting on an open protocol for speech, but holy shit, you better believe he's being inundated with messages to get a Lightning wallet so people can zap him. So he's going to be electrocuted with Lightning in very short order. And, if he's not already orange pilled, he's about to be. And so, yeah, like the need for open protocols like Noster, like Bitcoin, being able to speak, being able to transact freely with whomever you see fit, is so important. And even beyond that, I was talking off the top of the show with, HodlHodl is a sponsor of the show, and they're kind of peer-to-peer, but we saw Paxful shut down. And what's happening now, Ray Youssef, Nicholas Gregory, who also worked on Mercury Wallet, which is another like privacy preserving Bitcoin implementation, and Antoine Riard. I'm not super familiar with him, but basically they're putting together something called CivKit. And I'm just going to read a little bit about this so that people are familiar with what they're trying to do there. But it's just another example of an open protocol where censorship was exerted. And so we need to move to something that is doesn't allow that to happen. So here's just the Cliff's notes here. We propose a new peer-to-peer electronic market system which enables censorship-resistant permissionless trading between users of the global Bitcoin system. This design, this is my favorite part, this design builds on top of the new Noster protocol for its peer-to-peer order book and relies on the Bitcoin blockchain as a source of truth for its web of stakes marketing ranking paradigm. Market trades are locked under Bitcoin contracts to avoid reliance on trusted third parties for dispute arbitration. All market nodes are incentivized by privacy-preserving service credentials backed by Bitcoin payments. This market system should enable global trade of any kind of item all over the world, fiat currencies, goods, and services. And so, like, to see the recognition of, we have a problem with being able to transact freely. We have a problem with being able to speak freely, depending on the platform you're on and who's running it. And then we have a problem with being able to trade, not just like send transactions, but to trade between each other and obtain Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin for goods and services or other currencies. And to see the speed at which this stuff is being developed is incredible. And so I'm bullish because it's an example that even though it can be a pain in the ass, everything is good for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is like water. It goes the path of least resistance. I very much have value for people that are trying to remove some of the resistance, but I also placed a lot of value on people that are just removing the resistance in an entirely different way as well by building things that can't be resisted. So anyways, that's where I'm at. I'm very excited about all of this. I think it's really cool that Matt is jumping on Iris, or on Noster rather, and he's probably got a ton of zaps already if people have finagled him into getting a Lightning wallet. But I'm curious about your guys' thoughts. Anybody who wants to jump in, comment, question, whatever it may be.
Yeah, Ben, I think that's the best why am I bullish ever. Right? Really. Free speech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Across all avenues, across all markets.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most bullish thing I think I've ever heard you say. It's incredible. The ability for us to talk to whoever we want, transact value with whomever we'd like, you know, have goods and services, build a new Airbnb on these other, you know, on this other protocol, which I was at the NosterCon. It was an amazing event, although so not my world, right? Much more your world or the technical people's world. I just sat there like, I know I'm in the room with greatness. And it actually wasn't even a room. It was like outside, kind of in a covered pavilion in the jungle.
Did Tatum have a shirt on at this point or no?
You know, it was really funny. I think it was probably the most undressed place that you'd ever see everybody, because it was just so hot. It was like, what else can I take off? Like,
oh man,
you're just basically down to like tank top and shorts.
Yeah. And
you're just sweat and hair and yeah, it was great.
I'm a little jealous. I wish I would have been able to make it down to that one. Unfortunately, with the amount of travel I'm about to do, I may have been murdered by my wife, who is coming to Miami, by the way. Very excited. She came to a little event last year, but I was like, you gotta come down to Miami.
She has to come.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
She's gonna come down, and her mind's gonna be blown, I think, about like, because we went to a very like small, which was awesome. It was like a small intimate event. It was a HodlWeen in Charlotte last year. And it was like 100 and something people. So it was like a little thing. It was a lot of fun. But she's gonna get down there and be like, oh my God, like I had like a barrage on the senses. It's gonna be great. But
okay, so wait, I have to change what I just said. I think you bringing your wife to the conference is the most bullish thing I've ever heard you say, because I think when we get the people around us involved in Bitcoin, like we have truly won, right? Because like right now, I still feel like pretty much it's like the 128 of us that are in Bitcoin, and then everybody else goes, look at, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. She gets it. She knows that she like understands general Bitcoin, but she doesn't give herself enough credit. But she does the edits, so she'll at some point, probably, you know, a few weeks out, she'll be watching this show back, and she'll be editing little clips of stuff that you guys say to put out on Twitter. So anyways, when you see those clips go up and you get tagged in them, that's her. Her name is also Lisa, by the way. So
awesome. All right. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, exactly. Dennis, CK, do you guys want to tag in here? Anything about the freedom of speech, everything?
I mean, I'll jump in, and then I'll let Dennis close this out on it. But the idea that Bitcoin is like water is one of my favorites. So a slight augmentation to yours is Tina's quote, "Bitcoin's like water. You can't stop it, and it gets everywhere." I really do think like that is kind of how Bitcoin works. Mm-hmm. On top of that, Bitcoin's biggest advertisers are people who restrict freedom of communication and freedom of exchange. Mm-hmm. Like that's big. That's Bitcoin's biggest advertisement. So we've been saying that when Trudeau froze funds, we were saying that when the US did sanctions. Now we're seeing that with Elon, experimenting with what kind of like outbound link censorship you can do on Twitter. I definitely like in the world of like complex things, I never assume stupidity. I always assume that they're doing something that they're smarter than me. Like they're operating on a higher level than I am. and I try to be, as adversarial as possible. And I definitely feel that way with whatever the hell Elon is doing. So I definitely think Bitcoiners should stay humble when they kind of analyze what he's doing. But at the same time, whatever he's doing is good for Noster. And I'm going to talk a lot more about why I'm bullish on Noster. But BTC Sessions, you said a lot of good reasons why Noster is super freaking bullish. And it's like a protocol, again, that enables a whole new level of coordination. And it's really exciting. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to have a Noster insert in the Bitcoin magazine.
Oh yeah, just
The
like
Noster crossword puzzle,
or a fuzzy little like ostrich bookmark or something poking at the top, real feather.
I like the ideas already. I'm writing these down.
Perfect. Dennis, I'm curious to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, it's a pretty good thing to be bullish on. I liked your comments about the swinging back and forth that's occurring. I would call that political volatility, and the political volatility has been increasing significantly. I think that we all know that part of that is because of the volatility around the money that we've experienced. So I love to see that Bitcoiners are building the bridge to do different things as the volatility increases. Bitcoiners tend to be the ones that build these bridges. You have us, people in this space, building the bridge, the financial bridge, so that people have a way to escape what will inevitably come. Obviously, we don't know when the dollar, or if the dollar will ever start to fail as a reserve currency. It might not even happen in our lifetime, but we should be prepared for that moment. And Bitcoiners are building the bridge to make sure that people can have an opportunity to escape. And I think that you also now see that Bitcoiners are building the bridge to make sure that there's an opportunity for people to escape political volatility and I'll be able to speak freely on this new protocol. The opportunity for people to leave centralized protocols like Twitter. Even though I love Twitter, obviously I'm a big fan, I use it all the time. It's a great product. There is some problems that are inherent in that product, and no matter who has control over the power of centralized entities, whether that be the government or whether that be Elon Musk over Twitter, they're going to inevitably abuse that power against groups and peoples that they don't align themselves with or they think are problematic. That line that you said about how, talking about how no matter who's in power, they're going to use their power to be able to, go after their political opponents. It's something I talk about a lot, and it's why I warn people, just because Democrats are in power now and they're the ones that are seemingly anti-Bitcoin, it's very likely that if Republicans came into power that, they would see Bitcoin as a threat also. So I do think we'll commonly work with the party that's not in power. And I think that we make sure, that's why it's important we keep our eyes and ears open for opportunities to make inroads with Democrats when and where we can, because they're not always going to be the party in power. Political volatility just increases over time. And whoever's not in power is going to be attacked by the ones that are, and they end up being more allies of Bitcoin and allies of these sorts of new advents of technology, like Noster and Bitcoin, the protocol itself. My last point here is I hadn't thought about Noster being a way to orange pill people into using Bitcoin, because if you get on there, immediately you're starting to get zapped and get lightning tips, which is huge. And so I wasn't aware of that, and I think that's a really important reason why we want to push people onto that protocol potentially. But I think one last point that Yellow brought up, which is that I want to make sure Bitcoiners don't isolate themselves on that protocol as well.
Yes.
And we still meet people where they are on the current platforms that are out there today. Like, the most dangerous thing that Bitcoiners can do is to isolate ourselves from the rest of society and not be speaking to them, which I don't think is happening, but I think that some individuals have isolated themselves onto Noster. And I would just encourage those people, at least copy paste and put it on Twitter, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's super important. And I think, if anything, like you said, I still use Twitter all the time. Right. And so if anything, the fact that Noster exists, that it's got a decent network effect already, that lots of people are using it and lots of people are using it in tandem with Twitter, it keeps, or it will keep, those products in check, right? When there's an escape valve for everyone to default to, then there's a lot less shit you can try and pull before people just say, well, it's getting bad over here. I'm just, and I'm already using this other thing. I'll just start using that exclusively. So now you've got a lot of people that are straddling that line. Like you were saying, you use both. So do I. I'm using both. But if I were to get banned from Twitter tomorrow, I'd be like, well, I guess I just use Noster now. Okay.
I experimented Noster only for the majority of March, and it satisfied a lot of like my Bitcoin Twitter needs. Honestly,
Yes.
It was great. I really enjoyed it, but Noster's also not ready. Noster's kind of like Bitcoin. It's like Bitcoin works really freaking good, but if you added, 50% more people on it tomorrow, like stuff would break. So Noster is definitely in its infancy still as well, but it's extremely, extremely bullish, and the pace in which people are iterating on it is really awesome. And I agree, it's super, super optimistic for Bitcoin. The way I like to think about it is like, how easy is it for someone to get $5 of Bitcoin? And on Noster, especially if you're someone who has like an existing reputation, you get on there, you verify yourself enough that people like trust it. Like you can get $5 of Bitcoin easily, and then some of those people can get a lot more, and that is an awakening. Matt Odell, he kind of like had that interview with Lionel Shivers of the Mandibles, and he like did a little Bitcoin fundraiser for her, and she got more than an entire Bitcoin. Like she got a lot out of that. So
that's
like this is some powerful stuff, and that kind of like of getting Bitcoin, your hands on Bitcoin for the first time without having to buy it. That's super, super bullish, and that by itself is going to orange pill a lot of people.
Yeah. There's so much. I don't know. I'm excited to see, again, in the context of like Dennis was saying, I'd not heard of I've not heard of Noster being an avenue to orange pill people. I think it increasingly will become that, because people will be looking for alternatives to whatever social media platform they've had issues with that they're not allowed to say certain things on. And they'll migrate with free speech in mind, and then they'll end up getting free speech money through that, which is incredible. So yeah, I mean, uber bullish.
It's the same thing as the truckers, right? In Canada, when they were forced off the financial rails, like Bitcoin was there.
Yeah.
In the same sense, Noster's there when people are forced off of communication rails.
Yeah.
But then it's also a gateway to Bitcoin, because the Bitcoiners are there building on Noster first. And so there's a lot of things being done. And like you said, it's a slow grind, but eventually, this thing will be in a good position to help migrate away. We need to get as much power away from these centralized entities as possible for communication and for free speech, for money as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to round this topic out. Again, if you're watching and you haven't played with Noster yet, jump on it. Just experiment. Like, even if it's not your full-time thing and you don't use it all the time, being familiar with it and just trying it out is important, I think. Because like I said, if everybody's got a fallback, it keeps other things that you use in check. It prevents them from becoming so draconian that they drive away their user base to the truly open option, which is Noster. And, it's there for you too, if you start to prefer it. And I know a lot of people are starting to lean that way. So I'm using everything. But yeah, Noster is a unique beast, and just as Bitcoin is. So check it out. And I do have a couple tutorials on that. If you have no idea what the hell you're doing, you can go look those up. All right, we're going to do a rotation. First off, shout out to everybody in the chat. Keep those comments coming. I'll start pulling up more of them now that I don't have to focus so much on my own topic. But with that, we're going to do a rotation. And Lisa, I'm going to cue you up with the simple question: why are you bullish? Take it away.
Ben, I'm bullish because your wife is coming to Bitcoin Miami.
Perfect. End of show. We're done.
We're
I'll
done.
let her know.
Ben's wife is coming to Bitcoin Miami. I'm bullish. The families are showing up. No, it's the same thing I talk about all the time. So I apologize if anybody's heard me say this, but I am bullish because the energy companies are at the table. I think that the next wave of adoption, is the energy companies. And, I live in Houston. I've been talking to the energy companies for a couple of years. I've had the conversations with them at their boardroom tables where they look at me like I am from Mars. They look at me like I've just said Noster. And, you know, I'm really just trying to talk to them about Bitcoin mining. And I'll tell you a really bullish one instance that just got me like incredibly hyped up was at the Bitcoin South by Southwest takeover at the Bitcoin Commons. You know, that's part of the half that Unchained office, half Bitcoin Commons in Austin. It's a great space. People should go check it out. They had about 150 guests, and during that event, two guys who are executives at a gigantic energy company in Houston that I met with at least 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, that told me there's no way that our shareholders would let us be involved. It's too much risk. These guys came. Now I've had probably 3 conversations with them over the 18 months time period, right? And every conversation it's been like, hey, would you go talk to this person? Could you, and then they'd go off and do their own thing, right? I wasn't involved at all. But these two guys showed up at the Unchained event, tapped me on the shoulder, and I turn around and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, we're mining Bitcoin. We just went to ERCOT and we are working on, this gigantic project and this gigantic project. And these are just in Texas. And I mean, they have assets all over the country. And it's like, oh my God, they have figured it out that Bitcoin mining is like this razor so that you can just improve your margin, monetize every molecule. It allows, for example, a power producer who perhaps between 2 and 4% of the time, they have to pay ERCOT, the grid in Texas, to take power because it's just more economical for them than shutting their plants down, right? So they pay ERCOT. And actually, I've now found out, I've always estimated 2 to 4% just based on like back of the envelope bad math, but I've gotten some confirmation that it's about 4.5% of the time they have to pay to have someone take their product. Think about how crazy that is, right? Like Costco would never pay somebody 4.5% of the time to take product. That makes no sense. So a power company can, sit Bitcoin miners down, or they can do a JV, or they can do it themselves and begin to monetize those assets, right? A lot of people have heard about the flared gas mitigation that happens, which is phenomenal. I think a lot of us think about it in West Texas, perhaps, but those projects are happening all over the world. Mm-hmm. You have natural resources being produced in some of the most pristine parts of the world that it would break your heart to know that all there is in that part of the world is a pipeline to take the oil. So when you drill, most of the time, I guess, you have oil and you have gas that comes up. And in this pristine part of the world, this is actually happening in this very beautiful, pristine part of the world that you would cry if I said where it was. There's an oil pipeline because there's geographic challenges and you can move the oil basically uphill, but it's much more complicated to move the natural gas uphill. So they flare all of it. They flare 100% of it. And now you've got Bitcoin miners who are in a JV with this foreign entity to mitigate all of that gas flaring, right? It's mind blowing when you think about it. It's happening just these tiny little instances, but 500 megawatts here, 500 megawatts there. Mm-hmm. It's just the scale of it will explode because where it used to be, I would say reputational risk or risk with your shareholder that no way, we can't touch Bitcoin, ugh. Now it's like, why would you not? You're going to literally light your asset on fire 4.5% of the time and you have a solution. And by the way, same thing on an oil rig out in the Gulf of Mexico. I met with one of the largest independent producers in the Gulf of Mexico. and they produce oil and gas, and they use a lot of the gas to run the rigs, but they still all flare. Well, think about it. I mean, they have the most technically savvy guys in the oil field on those rigs, the computer systems, the teams, the infrastructure, the equipment. They just need some Bitcoin mining machines, and they can quit flaring all that gas that gets wasted. I mean, I could go on. I could name 5 more examples for different types of energy companies who are monetizing these assets. So the ability for energy companies to now have this awakening and go, holy cow, like, I'm going to monetize every molecule and put that money back into my pocket or put it into my shareholders' pocket. It's incredible. And, Dennis, I think your lobbying work is incredible and important. And there's so many people that are involved at the state level and in different places. In my dreams, though, we get the energy companies involved who really have significant dollars, and we get them involved in those lobbying efforts, because then lights out.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So I love the energy companies. I have history in the oil and gas business, and it's like the whole thing comes together. Aside from the fact that Lisa's coming to Bitcoin Miami, for me, it is just like, oh my gosh, they are finally doing this. It's not weird, strange. No, we're not even going to think about it. They're going to do it.
Yeah. It's wild to me that, again, like you said, why would you not? It's like if you were a carpenter and you're building, I don't know, you're building whatever it is, and you've got your workshop, and somebody came along and said, hey, all those scraps on the floor, can I pay you for those? And like, even the sawdust, I'll take the sawdust too. Like any leftover like scraps of wood that are completely unusable to you, I will pay you for those. And the person being like, nah, don't want it. I'm going to throw this in the trash. Thank you very much. Stop giving me money. Like, why would you?
No, and that's exactly right. I mean, there's a Bitcoin miner, Dan Morrison. You guys may know him, and he's out in New Mexico. He bought, I think, 40 acres of property that had essentially orphaned wells, because the gas pipeline over in that area where he has takeaway. So takeaway would be, the pipeline to move the fuel. It's the Waha pipeline, which Waha is historically volatile. It can either be $8 or it can be negative $1. And Dan finds this really abandoned property, 40 acres with all sorts of like buildings and steel casing, and just like you said, like metal junk, goes to the owner, and they hatch a deal. And basically the guy just wants to get rid of this because he can't figure out how to monetize the gas wells that are there, because a lot of the time it's negative, right? So he's like, forget it. This is not for me. I'm walking away. So Dan picks this thing up. He sells all the casing like on Craigslist, improves these buildings, puts the Bitcoin miners in himself, like puts the keep the dust remediation, all of that, takes care of that. I mean, it's like the ingenuity that's coming into this space is just, like, to me, it's amazing, right? It's like we have invented an entirely new industry for America that we should be proud of. And yet there are many of us that just want to fight it because we think it's like magic internet trash or something. And it's quite the opposite.
Yeah, it's wild. I'll let Dennis or CK jump in here.
I'll go first this time. Me and CK can take turns on being last. Yeah, Lisa, I mean, I obviously I couldn't agree with you more. There's a reason why, I started a political organization, and that is 100% focused on Bitcoin mining, even though, a lot of people outside the space, kind of don't understand why I would do that. But I saw what you saw, which is that there's this industry that has so much to offer, has so much potential, and a lot of innovation is going to come from that space, whether it be for, capturing wasted energy, whether it be through chip efficiency, and also through balancing the grid, various other probably innovations that we don't even know of yet. We're just getting started with this technology. But I saw that potential mixed with the, looming threat of being attacked by the most powerful government in the entire world. And I just thought, this is exactly what, a political organization educate on the benefits of Bitcoin mining, which we do on a daily basis, right? We go to state policy houses and we educate on the benefits of Bitcoin mining for jobs, local investment, grid stability, environmental cleanup, and the ability to enhance green and carbon-free energy projects, as well as other. It's really a tool. It's good for any energy project, but the biggest one that I really love, one of these big things I really like, is this wasted energy component, because no matter where you sit on the political spectrum, doesn't matter if you're, fringe right or fringe left on the environmental issue of concerning yourself with carbon emissions, like wasted energy is wasted energy. And converting methane into money that was previously unused by everyone and anyone, and nobody wanted it or nobody could economically get it to market, is a huge, huge new direction for the way that we see energy. And also with, green energy projects like renewables. I mean, there is an ungodly amount of curtailed wind and solar in this country. California is on track by 2030 to curtail more energy than the bottom 36 nations combined. I mean, it's a vast amount of energy that goes unused, and yet we get stuck on this. Oh, Bitcoin, uses more energy than XYZ. It's like, yeah, well, there's a lot of energy out there that nobody's using. So, and Bitcoin mining, because of the fact that it's like 90% plus operational costs go to energy, like they're always looking for ways to innovate. Combine that with the, the forced efficiency that has to occur with the halvening and also the difficulty adjustment. And all of a sudden you have this technology that is just ruthlessly competing to drive down energy prices. And the only way that you can do that is to tackling wasted stranded energy or finding other revenue sources like balancing the grid. So I'm very clearly very positive on Bitcoin mining and energy companies coming in. I think that you're seeing the utilities come in. Duke Energy is studying Bitcoin mining, the second largest utility. Some say the first largest utility in the United States, depending on the metric. You have various other organizations in the space, utilities in the space, studying Bitcoin mining. Amarin is studying Bitcoin mining. Texas is like leading the way, except for kind of what some of this recent stuff. But I think there's going to be a lot of effort to push back on this bill in Texas. We've got a lobby day we're doing on the 25th, which hopefully we can drop that in the link at the show links at some time. If you guys want to, we're getting a lot of folks together with the Texas Blockchain Council. We're going to do that lobby day on the 25th in Austin to push back on this anti-competitive, anti-free market bill that's being pushed there in Texas. And it's really sad to see, but unfortunately, these are the levers of politics. And it's part of the reason why, again, like I think it's so important to be politically involved to make sure that these things do not happen. But I'll hand it over to CK. I know that the Bitcoin Magazine team has some pretty interesting thoughts on who's leading the way on their sponsorships over there this year. So the energy companies are coming in big. I think that he has probably some intel on that I don't have though.
Yeah, I mean, I've said multiple times that every single energy company, every single company that creates energy or handles large amounts of energy will use Bitcoin. So I think that that's the future. And it's the choice between communism and capitalism. It's free markets or not. It's losing money versus making money. It's having energy versus not. Like it's really clean and dry. We are seeing what happens with the current energy regime, and Bitcoin is the only thing on the entire planet that is opposing to that and is opposite to that. And once these environmentalists, if you are a real environmentalist, you must embrace Bitcoin. That is like that is the most environmental solution, because what Bitcoin does is it introduces the incentive to be efficient, maximum efficiency. And I really loved what Lisa was saying, which is that monetize every molecule. Like that's a great way of saying like maximize efficiency. So if you want to maximize the efficiency of our energy system, you need Bitcoin. So at the Bitcoin conference, there's a lot of big companies that have either investigated sponsoring or are sponsoring. You can go check out the website, b.tc/conference/sponsors. but we have an entire stage dedicated just to mining.
Yeah.
You know, we have entire networking events dedicated just to mining, and a lounge dedicated just to mining. So, you know, it's a huge part of what we're doing. There's an entire mining village at the conference. We're trying to get a mining museum with every single piece of notable piece of hardware in mining at the conference. So we're doing our best to make an incredible mining experience at Bitcoin 23. But I've also been on record saying that the only thing potentially more bullish than Bitcoin as sound money in a digital age is Bitcoin's proof of work unlocking our energy capture capabilities. Like, I think that might be more bullish than the monetary elements of Bitcoin. And don't burn me at the stake. You know, thank God Bitcoin has both, but it's just so incredibly bullish.
Yeah, dude, I know that you. I'm sure there's some sort of thing that or agreement that prevents you from flaunting this name, but I had never signed anything to not have to mention this explicitly. But Shell is fucking sponsoring the Bitcoin conference. That's insane. They are massive. So again, to this whole topic, if you don't think energy companies are cluing in as to how special Bitcoin is as it relates to energy and energy consumption and removing waste from the system, I don't know what to tell you other than Shell is sponsoring the Bitcoin conference. That's crazy. Like, to see that. Yeah. It's wild.
Can I add one more thing too? Mm-hmm. Not only the energy companies make me super bullish, but so I always say when I'm on a podcast, if you want to work in Bitcoin and I can be helpful, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. I reply to everybody, and I have 15 minutes for anybody that wants to schedule a Zoom call if you are trying to come work in Bitcoin. So in response to me saying that, I recently got call or a message, and then it turned into a telephone call from a young guy who's a turbine engineer for Entergy. He had already written a paper on why Bitcoin mining would be an efficiency tool for Entergy, because on a maintenance basis, you know, again, if there's not uptake necessary for the grid, if there's not demand on the grid to take the power, those turbines have to shut down. And all of that off and on, just like when I start and stop my battery in my car, it's more wear and tear on my battery than if I just turn it on and leave it on. I know that for a fact because I wear out batteries like crazy because I do short trips, but it's the same thing apparently with a wind turbine. And this guy wrote this paper and said, can I send this to you? This guy is he's like 32 years old, a wind turbine engineer for Entergy, totally doesn't work in Bitcoin, right? But is a Bitcoiner. He's already done this work. And I'm like, dude, like, send this to Bitcoin Magazine. Send this to your executives. Like, put this on LinkedIn. I mean, be like Mickey Koss and just start like firing stuff off until people start listening to you. And so the talent that's coming into this really gets me hopeful. That people are coming up with things that, you know, I certainly would never think of. And, you know, but it's stuff they see in their daily life. Mm-hmm. Okay, this would be more efficient than me turning this turbine off. I'll just mine Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Lisa, I love to see the people that are coming to the space with these, you know, from outside the space into the space that understand energy. And I would love to get a hold of that paper. I don't know if you know, recently we launched Satoshi Action Education, and we were able to publish in an academic journal a special issue on Bitcoin, which allows us to be able to submit, you know, papers from academics and non-academics that highlight the value of the technology. So I don't know if this guy is interested in getting that into the academic realm, which is something we need way more of in this space. But we have a gateway. Our science advisor is an editor at that journal. And so it's a real unique opportunity if he's interested in putting that out there in a way where everyone can see it and also get it peer reviewed and get it backed up in a way where it's, you know, it's backed up in a way where the best way it can be, right? Peer reviewed is the worst system we have except for all others, just like democracy, right? It's like, but unfortunately, that is the system that a lot of policymakers make decisions on, and utility companies make decisions on. So I'd love to chat about that paper if it's an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that you were working on that, Dennis. That's incredible. Thank you for doing that. What a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
we were lucky to get approached by Dr. Murray Rudd, and he was the one that's helping lead the charge and helping us get into the journal.
That's incredible.
Nothing on my part. I just launched the organization. He's doing all the hard work.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, again, like the energy topic is so interesting, and it's a natural marriage between Bitcoin and energy, because it's energy is what allows us to tie Bitcoin to the laws of physics, and it's what roots it in reality, instead of, how did Vitalik Buterin put it, we're going to build our own laws of physics. And I don't know about you, but that's not a quality I want in money, that I want to be sure works the same as when I first own it to when I go to spend it later. So anyways, and the last thing I'm going to say in regards to like the energy mining, like finding waste and utilizing it side of things, is I did a video a week and a half ago. For those that think that mining at home is still out of reach, no, man, you can build a space heater with an S9. It's great. It's humming away in my living room right now, keeping my wife toasty warm. And yeah, you can find a used S9 for like $100-$150. You can get a 3D printed case from Crypto Cloaks and buy some fans. All in, you're maybe looking at like $300 or so. And it uses about half the wattage of a regular space heater. It won't heat the room as quick with less wattage, but it pays you back part of your electricity. So like weigh your options. Plug in your regular space heater and use more electricity and pay in full for it, or plug in your S9 space heater and get paid back part of your electricity every single month. I know what I'm doing now. So yeah, anyways, I love it. Bitcoin will eventually be part of any appliance that can take advantage of low grade heat. So cool.
Whenever heat is needed, or whenever there's like an appliance that's unused, I think it's going to just mine Bitcoin.
Yeah. What did Yellow say? Now with the space flare heater, you can mine your personal Dutch ovens from your own home. Thank you. I feel like that is part of a whole conversation that was happening prior to that, but I brought it up anyways. All right, we're going to do a rotation. Dennis, I'm going to toss it to you next. I'm going to cue you up with the same simple question. Why are you bullish? Take it away, man.
Yeah, man. Well, it's definitely down the same vein as, you and Lisa so far. And it's this, the conversations around the political space. For the last 2 years, I have been very focused on trying to move the needle in the right direction politically. I had some experience in the political realm before coming to Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining as a way to have, some sort of success. I think that for a long time, there was a narrative in the Bitcoin space that, we should stay out of politics, and that Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining are outside, government reach. And to some extent, like, I do agree with that. Like, Bitcoin will always survive. There's you can't kill Bitcoin. Those things are still true. But the problem is that you and me and everybody else listening to this call still live within the real world where governments can come after us. And I have, since the beginning of my, time in kind of being a public Bitcoiner, which started in early 2021, I saw this, looming threat of the U.S. government kind of cracking down on Bitcoin and Bitcoin related companies and individual Bitcoiners. And I thought, just like many others, like, oh, I'll just play some regulatory arbitrage, and I will go to another country that is tolerant of Bitcoiners. Well, after some thinking, I realized that, that's probably not a realistic path for me to be able to convince my entire family to sell our business and sell our home and, move everybody across the world just so I can keep my Bitcoin. As many of Bitcoiners, in the space, it's like, I'm the Bitcoiner and my family kind of follows along and just appreciates that it goes up in value. I don't think they'd be willing to, leave the nation that they're from or that they want to live in over an asset that they don't totally fully understand. So I kind of woke up one day and was just like, wow, I don't think this is a possibility. And one day it might be that I have to choose between my family and my Bitcoin. And, we all know what we're choosing in those instances. Like, you're always going to be choosing your family over money even. So when I woke up and realized and had that thought that I never want to be faced with that problem, that I would do everything possible to make sure that the United States moves the right direction on Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining so that we never have to be faced with any sort of political discrimination. So started off rough. I think many in the space, if you've been following me for a long time, know how it all began. But since then have had a lot of success. And so since launching my organization, Satoshi Action Fund, in June, we got to start trying to figure out how we could score real and realistic political victories for Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. And I thought the most important issue, as I stated earlier, to lean in on was Bitcoin mining. Because if you can get energy companies on board with Bitcoin, then you have a significantly more powerful wind at your back. I've only come to realize just how powerful that wind is after spending quite a bit of time at the state level advocating for Bitcoin mining. Utilities and power companies are some of the most powerful politically involved companies and organizations in the entire world. If you go to, for instance, in Mississippi, we had an issue there where a bill was introduced that we had kind of decided to put on the back burner because utilities were so opposed to it. So we said, let's just wait. Let's not introduce it. Unfortunately, there was a breakdown in communication and it was introduced anyways. And a week later, I'm meeting with 7 lobbyists from the various utilities and energy companies telling me that they're going to kill, everything I'm doing if I don't, work this bill back. So we got in talks with them, communicated with them a bunch, but eventually they just chose not to trust me and killed literally everything we were doing in Mississippi. We couldn't even get the definition of a word changed because they were so spooked by us. So I think that now that we're getting these energy companies on board, and now that we've had some success, the reason why I'm bullish is because we have been able to pass policy. Whereas I think 2 years ago, folks were wondering if this was even possible and that maybe we should just give up on the United States and start looking elsewhere. But we have successfully been able to pass in the House and the Senate in Montana and Arkansas political protections for Bitcoin miners, which I think is critical because Bitcoin mining is under a lot of political scrutiny and attack by various entities and various organizations, whether they be local jurisdictions or environmental organizations who just don't understand the technology. And so that is really why I'm bullish. I'm bullish because we have been able to make progress. We have been able to pass policy despite, all of the political headwinds. And we've done that by going to the state level. We've done that in a very Bitcoiner fashion. We are not in DC, although we educate there. We're in local communities. We're in local state houses, and we're having conversations with these people about this technology. And we follow the same strategy as the marijuana industry. And we're going to follow that strategy for a long time to come. The marijuana, we all think we have it badly, in the crypto Bitcoin space of being attacked, but nobody has it worse than the marijuana industry. It's still a federal crime to possess, distribute, and to sell or grow marijuana. It's still impossible to get, traditional banking in the marijuana industry. And yet they were able to pass pro-marijuana legislation in 75% of this country. But it started with 2 states. And now we're at 2 states. It started with 2 states in 2012. Colorado and Washington passed pro-marijuana legislation in those states. And then a little over a decade later, almost the entire country, 75% of it has passed pro-marijuana legislation. And the rest of the states that haven't are looking to do the same, looking to follow suit. So I think that's the same strategy that we're going to continue to follow. It's been very successful so far. The same exact thing is probably going to happen with the banking. Like you're going to have more so like state chartered banking, which is something that we're looking into and we think is an interesting idea, where states can be the ones banking, Bitcoin companies. Because if the Fed's just, maybe they're never going to get around to it. We think, oh, maybe the Republicans will be in power and everything will be fine. I'm not so sure. I'm not convinced. Maybe that's true, but I'm not going to assume and hold out a bet that that's going to happen. So we're going to keep fighting at the state level to protect Bitcoin miners and energy companies from being discriminated against when they use this technology. And we're going to keep advancing that mission. And part along the way, some of the things we're doing that's good for Bitcoin mining is just good for all Bitcoiners, right? Mm-hmm. You'll see some of the stuff that we're working on that's coming out is really, really going to be good And then we've taken that success that we've had with the political organization, Satoshi Action Fund, and we've funneled that into the new organization, which is Satoshi Action Education. And we're going to be doing research on Bitcoin mining. We want to make sure that we have data-driven, peer-reviewed, cutting-edge research on this technology. And we're going to break through that barrier. There's a glass barrier on any sort of research. Anytime you submit an article on Bitcoin mining to a journal, they have to turn around and ask people to review that article. So who are they going to ask? Well, they're going to ask people that have written on it before and who have been peer-reviewed on Bitcoin mining before. Well, it's guys like Alex DeVries and Moore et al. So unfortunately, there's this huge barrier in the way of us being able to get peer-reviewed data, backed research into the public journals. And we plan to take our success into Satoshi Action Education and smash that glass barrier so that we can start to have real conversations on how powerful this technology can be, not just for energy systems, but for the environment and for the economy as well.
Yeah, and so I alluded to the fact that, while obviously the people that are building the tools are important, I also value the people that are trying to remove the barriers and the speed bumps that Bitcoiners are going to have to endure in the future. It makes the tools that much more effective, that much sooner. Yeah, man, I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. I think it's very important. As you said, I got a family too, and got to tell you, it'd be a pretty tough sell to be like, well, looks like Bitcoin's illegal. We're moving to El Salvador. I don't know if my wife is gonna fully latch on to that and say, yeah, let's grab the kids. The grandparents can stay behind or join us. I'm sure they will. It's just not gonna fly. And so if you got to do some groundwork at home, you got to do some groundwork at home. And yeah, I think that's, that this is the work that saves a lot of people from having to make those hard decisions. And yeah, I don't know. I don't have too much else to comment. I just want to say I value what you do. And it's kind of cool to see since our initial conversation on our flight to Bitcoin 2021, how quickly everything that you've been doing has snowballed into what it has become. And I'm sure that snowball will only continue to gain momentum and size. So yeah, I don't know. CKA, maybe I'll get you to tag in here and then we'll grab Lisa's thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really important, one, to continue to educate as much as possible. Bitcoin is good for everyone, but it's also really bizarre and confusing. And it's like having that humble spot and starting there and trying to communicate the many ways that Bitcoin is beneficiary to you and your jurisdiction or whatever, tailored to whoever you're talking to, is super important. So, we've been seeing a lot of awesome momentum from the Satoshi Action Fund. And it's unbelievable that started just last June, less than a year ago. So Dennis, cheers to everything that you've done so far there. Also want to give a shout out to another organization, BPI, Bitcoin Policy Institute, similar time frame, been putting out really great work as well, doing a lot of education sessions. I know you had Zell on a couple of shows ago.
Last week, yeah.
Before BTC 2023 in Miami Beach, they're doing the Bitcoin Policy Summit April 26th. So that's actually the same time frame as Consensus. So if you're trying to do something in between now and the Bitcoin conference, the Bitcoin Policy Summit is a really great option. And the whole idea there is they have some of the most incredible orange pillars and people who can articulate the why case for Bitcoin. Jack Mahlers, Troy Cross, a lot of our friends, people who've been on the show a lot, and they are going to introduce them to staffers, people who are in policy, and just trying to make sure that's the highest signal event possible. So I'm really excited for that too. But again, super bullish on people waking up to how Bitcoin makes the world better, and people who are Bitcoiners like Dennis, waking up to saying I don't want some knucklehead who is not going to take the time to learn about Bitcoin to ruin Bitcoin in my jurisdiction. and going out there and making a difference there. And that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, is that it's like water. You can't stop it, and it gets everywhere. And there's these people who are pushing it forward because, you know, they're incentivized to, because it's going to help us too. And it gives us optimism for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I'll toss to Lisa. Do you want to tag in there?
Yeah, no, it was great comments, Dennis. And your track on the cannabis space is exactly right. Shout out to Burling Bank, based in Chicago, that we are trying to acquire. They bank the cannabis space, and they also bank some of your favorite Bitcoin companies. So there's a lot of that makes a lot of sense that you guys are viewing things from that lens. Mm-hmm. And really helping people frame it that way, because I think then it becomes a little more, I was going to say digestible, but, you know, no pun intended, digestible. And it's just it's an exciting time. It's also a very scary time for us, because I feel like here in the US, you know, I'm like starting to think, how can anybody be against sound money? How can anybody be against free speech? How can anybody be against you know, these principles that we think are obvious? And yet I think it boils down to a lot of people are lazy. You know, I talk to a lot of people who aren't even on Twitter yet. They're like, oh, I'm not on Twitter. I don't want to listen to all that junk. And it's like, dude, where do you get your news? I mean, where are you? What is a news source for you? And you know, it's like, oh, they read the New York Times in the morning, and it's like a very stale, stagnant, what have you, traditional news source. It's like we've all just, maybe me too, like we just became late. I think I was lazier before I found Bitcoin. And then once you find it, you're like, oh geez, like basically everything I assumed to be true may not be true. So yeah, kudos to you, Dennis, for really putting in place all of the academic, putting together the science and the academic and the practical nature of Bitcoin, and making that information available and digestible, because then it doesn't come off like it's a you know, a zealot who you know, who's talking about magic internet trash. Yeah. You've made it, you know, a very compelling academic case for what this looks like, and why these, you know, why free speech matters, why Bitcoin mining matters to, you know, methane mitigation, or what all of these other uses. So yeah,
totally agree.
Yeah, you know, that's on that track. I'm glad to hear, Lisa. A lot of times when I bring up that marijuana example, I hear a lot of people you know, discuss how various other ways that sort of you know, analogy works. But one of the best parts about it is we're following them. It's good that we have that example. We're following them very closely, in that we're not trying to say, oh, you should be able to have Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining because, you know, freedom of speech and all this other stuff, which is very critical and important. You know, the marijuana industry could have done you know, it's my body, my choice. You know, I should be able to smoke whatever I want, and you can't stop me. This is a plant, this is medicine type of thing. But what really started to work for them was saying, you know, this will create jobs, this will create tax revenue, this will help increase property prices and reduce crime. And that worked, because state policymakers, you know, that's what they want to bring to their jurisdiction. They want to bring more jobs and investment. And for us, it's grid stability and also enhancing renewables. And Bitcoin mining makes all that possible, whereas it was not possible before. And so the states compete. We were lucky to live in a country where states compete over each other to, you know, outcompete over business and jobs. And fortunately, I really love, you know, one of the best things is that this industry, because of the need for cheap power, is really attracted to unused and underutilized infrastructure. And the majority of that is in, you know, middle America, where it's been left behind over the last 30, 40 years. As we've offshored most of our jobs to, you know, other countries, these people have been left behind. So guys like James that work at the Riot facility in the middle of nowhere, right, in Texas, so to speak, who are 70 years old, are beaming, smiling when you come through the tour, because for the first time in a long time, you know, someone is coming and bringing jobs to their local community. And when I was talking to James, he was like, you know, I have a like dignity again in my life. I have a real job that, you know, I can depend on the income. And so I just want to see more of these jobs be created and more of this industry expand, outside of just being good for, you know, energy and these kind of bigger things like grid balancing and environment. Like individuals are being positively impacted by this industry. And I hope we can tell more of those stories as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. It's, I think so much we're on the cusp of something here where, again, it's kind of like I quite enjoy the book, the Fourth Turning, and I really like the kind of explanation of, well, naturally, depending on where you're kind of born in kind of these generational shifts, you react to stimuli differently, and I love the idea of kind of hitting that stride of building something new, of coming past all of our differences, and everybody kind of coming together on a common goal. And you know, that was kind of the post World War II era of, you know, we're you know, here we are, we're building up a new way of life where, you know, everybody's got their white picket fence, and they're, you know, we're all happy to go to work. We got our families, and you know, you saw this buildup of what was America. I think we have a bumpy path ahead of us, but I think out of that, people like my kids will be coming into adulthood with that kind of, like, you know, new horizon of I don't know, like a new way of living. And I think Bitcoin is a big part of that. And I'm very excited to see that come to fruition. Again, like my daughter is turning 6. My son just turned 2. They've never existed in a world where Bitcoin wasn't around. That's insane to me. It's incredible. My daughter makes she loves making stores in the house, and she'll take like her stuffies and different toys and stuff, and she'll make a little shop, and there's a little iPad. And, you know, I'll say, how much is that? She'll come up and say, well, it's, and, you know, she just picks numbers. Oh, it's 600. Well, what she pulls up her Lightning app on her iPad, and I pay her 600 sats. And so she's learning it's a normal thing. And initially, like, you know, I'd joke around and I'd be like, well, do you accept Bitcoin? And she'd be like, no. And now she's like, you have to pay me in Bitcoin. She pulls out the iPad. So she's stacking her own sats. Of course, I'm buying the stuff from her that I previously bought for her that she will then reclaim as her own. But she's on her path. So yeah, it's exciting.
And she's 6.
And she's 6, yes.
Pay me in Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah.
We need to train every 6-year-old in America to say, pay me in Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So before
Bitcoin at the lemonade stand.
Yeah, now she won't accept anything else. It's great.
It's electronic money that she can actually have. Like, what other way can she have electronic money?
Well, and here's the kicker too. She started, so now she's like, every once in a while she'll play games, and then recently, like, she watches little clips on YouTube, and she sees people playing Roblox, I think it is. And anyways, on BitRefill, you can buy the in-game currency with Bitcoin via Lightning. And so I've been waiting for her to drop this on her, but I'm going to be like, hey, you know, when you're playing your game and I say, like, no, that costs money. We're going to need, you can't just like buy that in the store. What if I told you now, you know how we play the store at home and you've earned some Bitcoin? Well, you can go buy a gift card with your Bitcoin for real and then go use it in your favorite game. She's going to be so floored when she finds that out. And I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for it, but it's going to be fun.
I have a story for you. So I have a bunch of little cousins, you know, kind of like from age, now they're like 18, but when I started doing this, they're like 15 and younger. And for Christmas or any birthday, I would only give Bitcoin. And like, I would give them like $100, and, you know, 2017, $100, or 2018, $100. That could turn into like $500 pretty quick on you. So all of a sudden, like, they have some substantial cash, you know, year after year getting Bitcoin from me. And one of them figured out how to go on Newegg, and he was a more industrial one, and he wanted to build a computer, and he used the Bitcoin to buy computer parts and build a computer. And at first I was like a little pissed at him because like, no, you're supposed to hodl that forever, kid. Like, come on. But then I had to like forgive him. And honestly, like he's a sharp kid, and he sold the top when he bought his computer. Like he sold 60K plus. Nice. And I was like, oh no, you got to hodl forever. And now I look like the idiot who can identify the top when my 15-year-old cousin could. But I was really proud, you know. And,
were you screaming super cycle when he bought,
oh my God,
totally, the computer?
Totally. I was like, you idiot, no. But you know, he's been stacking too now. So proud of the guy.
And honestly, you need that. You need those moments of like obviously I earn and live on Bitcoin now, so it's an entirely different world, right? But you need those moments of having spent Bitcoin and looking back and be like, because like, okay, so for instance, when Fold came out, they were initially like, you would buy gift cards with Fold, like Starbucks gift cards, and then the balance that you didn't use in your Starbucks gift card, you could get refunded in sats back to you. So you could get like a $20 gift card, use $17, and they get the $3 back in sats. That was part of the flow. And so I did a road trip across the US in 2014 with my then girlfriend, now wife. But we drove across the US. We drove all the way to New York. And the whole way I was buying a Starbucks with Bitcoin. And each one of those, like every time we stopped in and we got like a $30, you know, like we got a couple of lattes and some food and like a little dessert. That was thousands of dollars for every Starbucks visit, every single one of those for like a month and a half long road trip. So I think back to that, I'm like, oh my God. But everybody has to have their Laszlo pizza moment to be like, oh, this money is valuable. And it's not that you don't ever then spend it. It's that you come into a mentality of, I need to make sure that I'm spending less than I earn and I'm saving with my Bitcoin. And if you come out of it with that, then it does, like, naturally, if you have a fixed supply money, it will always purchase more in the future. But you find that balance of planning for the future while also enjoying your life. And again, as long as you're spending less than you earn, you're not utilizing massive amounts of debt for everything. It puts you in the mindset to live while also planning for the future and not in the rat race, hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it, that we're currently on, where it's just, you're perpetually spinning in the mud. There's like 3 metaphors in there for you, but whatever. Nonetheless, yeah, I'm conscious of time. We got to get to CK. I'm going to round out this topic. Dennis, I love it. Thank you for what you're doing. It's very valuable. And I think the work that you're doing now is going to save a lot of people from a lot of roadblocks that they could have encountered. And at least where you're seeing like the most strides forward, it keeps everybody else in check, right? Like you have one state doing one thing and one state doing the other. It incentivizes people to, within their own country, go there, right? Like it keeps the other states in check, if not.
Our goal is for every New York moratorium that we want 3 states to pass pro Bitcoin mining legislation, and we're on track to meet that goal this year. So that's kind of our, like, go ahead and attack Bitcoin, because it'll just result in even more states being pro Bitcoin. Yeah,
it's again, like you guys in the States have. Again, I'm up in Canada, so you guys have a very unique situation there, where you've got that freedom from state to state, where you have much more control at the state level, which we don't have provincially from province to province here, where if you don't like it, you don't even need a passport. You just hop over to whatever state is more favorable to you. Whereas here, I'm in Alberta. It's like the Texas of Canada, if you could get such, but like we're still very beholden to the federal government here. So yeah, I'm a little, other than the fact that Uncle Sam will chase you across the globe to get his cut. Other than that, I'm envious of the geographical arbitrage you have within your own country. So with that, we're going to do a rotation. I'm going to toss it to CK. I'm going to cue you up again with a very simple question. Why are you bullish?
Oh man, so this has been a very bullish conversation. There's so many things to be bullish about. I think the sovereign individual thesis is playing out. That's extremely bullish. If you haven't read that book, you need to. Most important book in Bitcoin, probably. Yep.
Dude, how many copies are you bringing with you, by the way?
I'm bringing about 10 copies, but I only have so much suitcase space.
Yeah.
So it needs to go on top of all my stuff and my carry-on. But I've historically been giving copies of Sovereign Individuals to people who bump into me at the conference. So if you bump into me, ask for Sovereign Individual, you get one if I have one. So come find me, but you got to read the book, got to listen to the book, whatever it takes, it's worth it. But outside of that, why am I bullish? There was a meme back in 2018 and 2019 when I was like starting to like make my chops in the Bitcoin space. And that kind of narrative and meme was that Bitcoin will absorb all of the other features that are like being solved by blockchain. Like anything that is worthwhile is being absorbed by Bitcoin. And it was kind of hard to see that being a reality then. Even though Lightning was out and that was kind of solving payments, that was really kind of like one of the first kind of bolt-ons to Bitcoin that made a really big change there. But since then, think through, Lightning came in 2018. Now we have Noster. Now we have podcasting 2.0. Now we have all of these other, self-server solutions. Now we have immutable file storage in terms of like different ways to put information onto Bitcoin. All of these things are building and compounding on themselves. And they're taking like all of those altcoin features, the payment coin, the NFT coin, the social media coin that social media that needs its own, currency. Now you have social media and Bitcoin's built right in. And it's actually the strongest potential Bitcoin orange pilling movement that is now emerging, right? And it's this just kind of incredible seeing Bitcoin absorb any good ideas and Bitcoin always getting better and getting more resilient. And Paxful goes down, CivKit appears, and that's even harder to kill. So it's super, super bullish. It makes me really excited. And I know people are torn on inscriptions. I'm personally not someone who is like going to spend a lot of Bitcoin on art or anything like that, but it's Bitcoin, right? This is happening on Bitcoin and people are using something within the consensus mechanism that is bringing more people to Bitcoin, fees up, full nodes up, people who are using CoinJoin up, all of these things are up. And this is kind of showing Bitcoin's nature of absorbing what is good around it, being a true free market asset. And, all of a lot of this, transpired just this year. So it's incredible just to see how bullish of a year 2023 has been. I'm extremely bullish for the remainder of this year. And I think 2024, hopefully we're off to the races with the halving, but Bitcoin's getting harder. Bitcoin's getting stronger. I'm bullish.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think it's a very unique time. I think there's a lot of people that are having trouble with kind of reconciling what's currently happening, right? Because you're right. Everything, just as people have been saying for years, everything of value will be built atop Bitcoin. That also means people are going to try to build things that don't have value atop Bitcoin. And that's also a very subjective thing. And so I think what you're seeing right now is Bitcoin focused for so long, and everybody on Bitcoin focused for so long of, we need a solid foundation, something you cannot shake. And that takes a long time to establish. You can't fuck around with that. You've got to get it right. You've got to get it perfect or as close to perfect as possible. It has to be good enough. And the ground can't be shifting from underneath you at all times. You can't be questioning how the protocol is going to function moving forward if you're building stuff on top of it. And that's what we see, these massive trade-offs that all of these other coins have made, where we want to do this. We can't currently do it on Bitcoin, but we want to do it now. So, immutability, censorship resistance, all of these other things. Well, yeah, but we need to do this now. So, that's what you saw. And you saw people go off, build other blockchains and experiment and do all this other crap. Okay. Well, now we're at a space where Bitcoin is slow and expensive is out the window, right? Like if you try to say that today in 2023, I do not know what to tell you. I probably can't convince you. But nonetheless, that is a moot point. That you just said, social media platforms, we need a token for them. Do you? No, apparently not. Because the one that actually got any traction that's doing well and growing has Lightning baked in and native. And so now you're seeing things where, I'm not an NFT guy. I'm going to be right out of the gate. I'm not going to pay for a JPEG. It's not in my blood. But at the same time, I'm not, it's not for me. But at the same time, I'm looking at this. I don't line up with the idea. I don't see it as a threat either. I think a lot of people are going to take all of the ideas that happen outside of Bitcoin, good and bad, and they're all going to come to Bitcoin. And then we will start to sort through what is of value and what's not. And I have my opinions about what I think is bullshit and what's not. And other people will differ from that. But I think in the end, the economic reality that is scarce block space will sort through that. Right now, we're in a space where, somebody may not have a problem, making a 4 megabyte block with a silly picture in it and paying a couple grand for that. But when the price of Bitcoin is much higher and block space is much more scarce, that may not be such a trivial transaction to put through. And so what takes precedent? And also, what does that do to the pace of the pace of development on layer 2 solutions that also still guarantee you self-custody? I think all of this, because we focus so much on having this base layer that is unshakable, or as close to unshakable as we can get it, the economics of it are sound, and I don't know, if a few shitty JPEGs can bring down Bitcoin, then I'd rather know now.
My whole mental model with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is most likely binary. Yeah. The option 3 is Bitcoin is just some other asset. So outside of a binary win-lose scenario, in my opinion, is very unlikely. So I think either Bitcoin hyper-Bitcoinization or Bitcoin zero because of a more disruptive technology making it irrelevant, or the game theory breaking down and it all falls apart. Yeah, that's how I think of Bitcoin. So if JPEGs make Bitcoin not fungible and ordinals make Bitcoin not fungible, then Bitcoin broken. I don't know what else to say, but I don't think that's the case. And I think that if it was so easy to break Bitcoin, then it's not the answer for us. Yeah. Personally, I don't think that any of this stuff so far is going to make Bitcoin. And I'm very excited to see how Bitcoin's incentives continue to evolve and how people who use it within consensus continue to evolve. And that's how it's going to, become this thing that we all think it's going to be.
Yeah. And I'm bringing this one up because I want to address it too. And this is where kind of I'm sitting there looking at everything that's happening in and around ordinals and everything. And I know this is a super hot topic. I've talked about it on the show prior. Again, and where I sit is I think it's dumb. I also, and whatever, if somebody wants to go and do ordinals. Like I also don't think it's a threat. I think economically it sorts itself out. So the comment here, it's not about Bitcoin, it's about grifters scamming people. I mean, sure, like if you're going to rug pull, if you're doing shady shit, absolutely. So I think the long and the short of it is, if somebody is convinced that one sat is worth more than one sat, I don't know what to tell them. I don't agree with them. If I'm not about to sell one sat to somebody else for more than one sat. But yeah, I don't know. I think that if I'm right, then those people will learn a valuable economic lesson. If I'm wrong, then congratulations to them, I suppose. I don't know. Either way, Bitcoin continues to function as it is. So like, and like in the context of Bitcoiners, like Bitcoiners that have been around for a long time, well, a lot of them gravitate towards the idea of like, like I'm not going to pay additional money for sats because they have, some code, a snippet of code in them. And then for the newcomers, I mean, I was an idiot when I joined in this whole space. I had all of the bullshit. I ran Dogecoin QT. I had the Dogecoin client verifying the Dogecoin blockchain on my friggin' MacBook. And like, yeah, I mean, we all go through that idiocy. Some people's trajectories are quicker. Like there wasn't as much information back then. So it took me like, I think it was like 2017, 2018.
Sessions. The idiocy of inscriptions now gets you to download Sparrow Wallet in a full node. So, I mean, it could be stupider. That's for sure. I don't know. Again, I think I see Bitcoin binary and it's either good or bad for Bitcoin. I think that everything is good for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just this overwhelming kind of force. It's like water. It gets everywhere, or you can't stop it, and it gets everywhere. Yeah. So it's either that or it's not. So I'm pretty calm here. I mean, I'm happy to address the elephant in the room. Bitcoin Magazine tomorrow is doing a auction of 23 covers inscribed into Bitcoin. Again, I think it's an experiment. We've had opportunities as like a publication, a media company, an art company. We've been involved in art for a long time. We're a culture company. We bring Bitcoiners together. We've had the opportunities to like make a digital artifact for a long time, and we've pretty much always said no. Outside of experimenting with stuff that was associated with Bitcoin, we did something on Liquid. We've done stuff on Counterparty, which is all run on Bitcoin. And then this is the most Bitcoin thing possible so far. So we have folks on the team who are in the art space, very excited, inscribed covers early on. We're just experimenting, seeing what's happening. We're doing a Dutch auction, which is, it starts at the highest price and goes backwards. And we're doing it with PSBTs. So partially signed Bitcoin transactions. It's trust minimized. It's really cool. So, I mean, again, in the grand scheme of things, we love Bitcoin. We're focused on Bitcoin. If this is a fail, it's a fail. If it's a huge win, it's a huge win. We go on to the next thing. We're dropping a magazine 2 days later. We're doing a Bitcoin conference 30 days later. Like, I think people are get their wits, get bent out of shape when Bitcoin's just ticking along. So
I will say that I love the physical copies. I will not to be offensive, I will not be bidding on the on the inscription. But yeah, the physical copies, I quite enjoy the magazine. I've got actually it's like, I think it's issue 22, one of the old ones.
That's a great one. That's issue. I think that is issue 22, which is the last one made by like the original Bitcoin magazine.
Yeah.
Entity.
Yeah. So I've got that. I've got that one. Yeah, I mean, again, like I don't personally like. I don't see the value in the inscriptions on chain. I don't see them as dangerous either. Yeah, but the physical magazine, and like Bitcoin's not physical, and so as somebody who, you know, I like having my memorabilia and stuff like that. So like having copies of magazines and so, and like I have a framed copy of a magazine on my wall, and you know, there's things like that I find value in. And so, yeah, I view those things as different. I love what Madex is doing, like Space Bull. So what he does is it's basically the inverse of what ordinals and NFTs are. He makes physical art, and then for a while, what he was doing, he was taking an open dime, and he was doing a small transaction for a certain amount of sats to the open dime, and then affixing it to the physical art, like so that it couldn't be removed. And that's basically like part of his signature along with a physical signature. And he would put the block on it and the transaction ID. So you can actually look up like the transaction, the movement of sats to like an open dime that's affixed to your physical piece of art. So like, it's like instead of being like, here's a digital piece of art that everybody has access to that's on like an open chain, it's here's a physical piece of art which no one else has access to. You have the only piece of art, and the signature has basically been like is affixed to a certain block, which was just like a regular Bitcoin transaction that is affixed to a hardware device on your piece of art that you will own forever. And if you wanted to tear it off and redeem the sats on the open dime, it would kind of be like tearing off the signature on a Picasso, which is to me, that's a cool idea. I think that's a unique way of
it's fucking
art.
awesome.
Yeah.
There's some artists in Bitcoin that like mesh Bitcoin into their art so well, and it's absolutely wild. I've been talking for a while. I mean, I would love to hear what Lisa or Dennis have to say about all this stuff, but again, you know, Bitcoin compounding, that's why I'm bullish.
Yeah, I'll jump in. First of all, I didn't know we weren't supposed to like be buying Bitcoin at 60,000 that your cousin was selling. I mean, I was buying it. And I've been saying that, like I said that all the way down to 16. I'm super excited I bought it in the 60s. I think it's actually a bragging right that I still own that Bitcoin. So it makes me happy. But yeah, I mean, I was on Toxic Happy Hour right before I jumped on here tonight. And I mean, the whole space was on fire over these things that y'all are doing tomorrow at Bitcoin Magazine. And I was so late to the conversation. I was like, wait. What happened? What have I missed? And I mean, Alana was on fire and somebody else was on fire. And it's like, guys, you know what? 2 words, free market, right? Free market. It'll sort itself out. That's the great thing about Bitcoin. And you know, to somebody's point, you know, Ben, I think your journey, the Doge, and, you know, my daughter told me today that she's in the blockchain club at her college. And so I asked her, they have a meeting on Friday night, who knew? And I said, oh, that's great. You know, how's everybody? What's going on? I asked her about some of her friends, and she said, oh, you know, I think I'm making progress with so-and-so because they said to me, you know, I think I don't own enough Bitcoin and I have to sell all of that ETH. And Ella was like, definitely. But like, it's the journey, right? It's the journey. I mean, I owned about 20 something coins and traded because I told myself that I was a legit day trader. Like I was paid for 10 years to trade commodities, so I could definitely trade crypto. How dumb is that? Right now I'm like, nope, I bought it 60 and I still own it. I'm happy to have it. No day trading involved. Thank you very much. Makes my IRS tax filing so much simpler.
100%.
So no, I'm excited for you guys, CK. I think it's cool what you're doing. And you know, if it's a fail, that's kind of cool too. it'll certainly make a huge splash. You'll probably get more publicity if it's a fail.
It's a fail on Bitcoin, and I mean, people are talking about 10 BTC, so I think that might be working too.
Yeah, definitely.
Dennis, I want to get you in here too.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I can definitely see points on both sides of the aisle on this issue, and it also is interesting that we are, within the Bitcoin community, we kind of have our own political, factions, so to speak. This one is interesting to me in particular because you have this small block narrative, and all of a sudden now you have some of these people on the inscription side saying like we should increase the block size, and I think that's the only area where I would say it's like very dangerous. So just as long as we can make sure that we are not having those types of conversations or entertaining those types of conversations, I think that's something really to be to be cognizant of. And otherwise, I said this is the same thing I said about NFTs, right? It's like I'm glad artists have a way to monetize, and that this is a way for them to get their art out there. It's not something that I would buy. I much prefer physical art. I'm a big fan of physical art and physical objects, things that I can hold in my hand in a sense, right? It's funny because it's the same argument people use about gold versus Bitcoin, right? It's something that I can hold in my hand, but I think it's good to experiment. I like experimentation, and as CK said, if it's a failure, then it's at least as we tried to do it on Bitcoin, and this is the thing that people said for a long time. I think it does kind of help in the narrative war a little bit, in the sense that people go for a long time like, oh, you can't do it on Bitcoin. It's like, well, you can. It just depends on what we decide to build on Bitcoin. Are we going to allow these things to be built on Bitcoin? And I think if it becomes a serious problem, just like the block size wars, you'll see a big battle, and the more entrenched side will win, right? So I'm not too concerned. And I really don't think there's an opportunity to expand the block size. The Ordinal clan, the Ordinal people that are interested in that will run into the exact same problem that the BSV people did, which is that users control the network, and users are not going to allow the block size to be expanded for essentially NFTs.
I'm assuming are you referring to the tweet from Ordinals Wallet that was like,
I don't know. I've heard people say we should expand the block size to allow for more Ordinals, and so that's the only thing that I'm like, well, that's just a no-go, right? I mean, that's why when I first joined in Bitcoin 2017, total anon on the internet, was just watching and listening. I became very entrenched into the small block side of the debate. I think that's a critical component to Bitcoin to protect its decentralization. So when anyone's talking about increasing the block size, and not even for transactions, this is for something else other than transactions, which I think Bitcoin transactions are quite a bit more important than art transactions, then that's really going to be a problem. But otherwise, do it until it breaks, right? I guess there was one person that commented too. They said they had a hard time getting a small transaction through on the base layer. So it's something to be concerned about. I think it's something we should be watching and keep an eye on. But I don't think we should rush to destroy it just because it's creating some inefficiency problems in the short term.
So I mean, okay. So here's. Okay, first of all, let's chat about the guy who this is kind of where it came from. So this is the tweet. It's from a Twitter account called Ordinals Wallet. Increasing the block size 1% means 1% more fees earned per block for miners. Increasing the block size 100% means 100% more fees earned per block for miners. Quick maths. I mean, first of all, no, but second of all, just for context, the dude that created this is one of the dudes that was like hardcore. So the person behind this account left Bitcoin for Bcash for bigger blocks, and then subsequently left Bcash for BSV for bigger blocks, and then subsequently returned to Bitcoin for Ordinals, and now is complaining that the blocks are not large enough. So just just to give you the full context of what was going on there and where this conversation materialized. Secondly, I think the economic reality will come home to roost at some point, and people will only utilize this where it makes economic sense. If you're unsure if you're going to recoup hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of fees to put a silly JPEG on the Bitcoin blockchain, then you're much less likely to do that. Now, the interesting analogy I went out and hung out with Matex and Dave Bradley. His name is Bitcoin Brains on Twitter. He's co-founder of Bull Bitcoin. So the three of us were hanging out. This was like probably like a month back, just after the Ordinal stuff, or like a month and a half back after the Ordinal stuff had just kind of started blowing up. And so we're having a discussion about it. And Matex obviously is very physical art. I want to make physical art. Maybe I can use Bitcoin in some way to more or less like timestamp my physical art. But like he's been asked to do NFTs and Ordinals and shit. And he's like, I am blanket, not ever doing that. And I'm like, sweet. Awesome. I love your physical art, and I think that's a solid stance to take, and that's fine. But he was talking about Burning Man. He's talking about Burning Man and going to Burning Man and how they build these massive structures out of wood, and there's just these amazing monoliths and these incredible structures that eventually get burned down. And he basically talked about how you go inside of these things, and the whole bottom of the structure, people just go in and they just write shit all over the bottom of it, and they graffiti it, they do dumb shit. Some people like write out like, oh, they're trying to let go of certain things that have happened to them through the years, so they'll write it on the side of the inside of this big monolith, this big structure that has been built. And he said, like, the bottom is just covered in fucking bullshit. But then there's a point where people can't reach it anymore. They can't reach beyond a certain point. Maybe you can get on somebody's shoulders and write a little bit higher, but there's a certain point where people can no longer write. And he's like, at that point, beyond there, it's pristine. And it's only basically used for its original purpose, which is like this big, incredible sculpture and like, I don't know, like ode to humanity. And I think there's a very useful metaphor there in Bitcoin. We are so early to Bitcoin, where we've seen Bitcoin blocks be used for a ton of different stuff. Shit, one of the first things that filled the Bitcoin blockchain was Satoshi dice, literally online gambling, poker, transactions, and every single game, every single settlement was an on-chain transaction, and they bloated the chain and bumped up fees. We saw all kinds of, like, we saw exchanges, every withdrawal was an on-chain transaction. Coinbase didn't batch transactions for fucking ever, even though everybody's like, you need to do this, come on. And so, and now, yeah, people are paying money and putting silly JPEGs on the chain. But I think what I'm getting at here is we're 13 years in, 14 years in, like we're in its infancy, and we're getting to the point where the economic reality is people are gonna start to not be able to reach. Economically, it's not going to make sense. The effort it's going to take to scribble your name on the Bitcoin blockchain is going to be increasingly economically difficult. And we're going to get to the point where Bitcoin becomes this beautiful monolith. It's so early that people can still graffiti the side of the chain, if that's how you're looking at it. But that will not be true in the future. And I think the most important economic transactions of our society as settlement will be taking place on the Bitcoin blockchain. And then the simplistic buying a cup of coffee, doing other things will be taking place on second layers, on side chains, on all of these different things that utilize Bitcoin as an anchor. But that monolith, that ode to humanity, will be all of a sudden almost kind of untouched. It will serve its purpose, and we'll be able to look at it in all its beauty and all of the flaws from the early years and appreciate it for what it is. So that's kind of, I thought it was such, and again, I've got to give this to Matex, because that metaphor was so, I think it was a beautiful metaphor that he was getting at. And I know a lot of people are very passionate about Bitcoin, and rightfully so, because it's I'm going to say the most important invention that, in my lifetime. And I think that it will fulfill that role. And I know that people will use it for silly reasons in the interim. And that's just part of the game. That's just how it earns its stripes. But I think that that doesn't take away for what it is growing into in adulthood and in late life. So yeah, that's my take.
That is a phenomenal metaphor. I can't wait. I'm not sure if I follow him, so I have to go follow him on Noster and Twitter and everywhere else.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that is an incredible metaphor. Love that.
Very punk rock art as well.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Yellow. Wait, that means today's ordinals are going to be worth a lot more in the future. Ben, change metaphor quick from yellow.
Scarcity, bro.
That's funny. Okay, I know we're definitely over. We gotta start rounding out. So I want to give everybody a quick chance to give any final thoughts. The other thing that I like to do at the very end of a show is any final thoughts that you didn't get to say, but also if you have a recommendation for people to check out. It could be anything. It could be just like a piece of advice. It could be a blog, a video, a book, a whatever it may be, a website, anything that's top of mind that you're like, hey, this could be useful to you. Point people in that direction. So my general, I think the general gist of the talk is it was all around not having to ask permission. It was all around allowing people to freely choose what they do with their time, their energy, their speech, their transactions, all of that stuff. And that, I mean, that's kind of comes down to the ethos of Bitcoin and what it is within the constraints of economic reality. Like, do you want to do this? Is this worth it to you? And I think we're seeing that. We're seeing that with Bitcoin. We're seeing that with all the layers on top of Bitcoin. We're seeing that in social protocols. We're seeing that in transactional markets like CivKit, all these different things that are happening. And I think it's very unique. If anything, and I've kind of been trumpeting it through the week, but if anything, given the New York Times riot, blockchain, all that kind of stuff in and around mining, if you would like to go forth and mine anyways, and perhaps capitalize on some waste, go build yourself an S9 space heater, and you can use my tutorial to do so. And then, yeah, get repaid a little bit of your electricity bill in the process. So yeah, that's my recommendation there. I'll toss it to, let's go CK first. Final thoughts, recommendations.
Thank you, Benny. Yeah, I got to bounce here soon. I got a friend waiting for me downstairs, but in terms of recommendations, I would just say go to a Bitcoin meetup. That is absolutely the best way to continue to further Bitcoin forward. Best way to onboard people is meeting Bitcoiners in person. I think that Bitcoiners are best in person. So while we have 24/7 live programming all over the internet at any given time, the virtual stuff is not the same as meeting up in person. That's why we do the Bitcoin conference. So go to your Bitcoin meetup. And if you can come to the Bitcoin conference, definitely try to do so. It's absolutely worth it. Life-changing to be around that many Bitcoiners. So that would be my that would be how I exit here. And y'all, thank you so much for the great conversation. Thank you so much for having me, Benny. And thank you so much for everyone who watched and gave me feedback as well. I always love feedback. But I got to bounce, so I'm going to let myself out. Thanks again.
CK, thank you. Have a good night. Have a good weekend.
Peace.
Awesome. Dennis, I'm going to toss it to you next for final thoughts and recommendations. Go ahead, man.
Just final thoughts. Just, love being on the show. Thank you for having me on, and excited to see Lisa and CK and all this excitement around the energy companies and them coming into the space. Lisa, I'll have to touch base with you later and see how we can get more of these energy companies lobbying for Bitcoin mining, and not just the Bitcoin mining companies, so to speak, which I think is inevitably going to take place. We talked about earlier how Shell's sponsoring that conference, but the BTC 23 conference, but they also create like products, liquids that are for immersion cooling for the mining space. They also are, funny enough, they own a shell company that owns a Bitcoin mining company. So Shell owns a shell company that owns a Bitcoin mining company. So it's pretty funny there. Not a whole lot to recommend other than just yeah, make sure you're going to the latest conferences. I'll be in and around BTC 23, and also there's going to be Mining Disrupt coming in up in July. We are going to be going in very heavy on Mining Disrupt in July. We're going to be, having an event there, big event, in collaboration with some of the folks on the ground. We're going to be doing expo. We're going to be speaking. So that's going to be a really, really, really big push for us. And I think that if you're into Bitcoin mining, if you want to learn more about Bitcoin mining, you couldn't pick a better event to go to. And tickets are still pretty relatively cheap because it's a little ways out. So I'll be there at both those conferences. If you want to hit me up, my Twitter, my DMs are always open. I'm always open to hearing from people. And thank you for all the folks that gave me some support in the chat for the work that's happening with Satoshi Action.
Awesome. Dennis, is there a website for Satoshi Action Fund?
Yeah, satoshiaction.io is where you can go to see our main website. We also have satoshiaction.org is for our more of our like C3 nonprofit stuff that does the research and education. But both of those sites are up and running. You can go check them out. Most of our work is on the satoshiaction.io website. But I'll also, I don't know if it'll let me drop down in here. Does it?
Yeah.
This is the Eventbrite. I put in the Eventbrite down there. So April 25th, Austin, Capitol. We're going to be on the yard out there. We got the South Lawn booked. We'll have a tent because it's going to be hot. We're going to have food. We might be working with the Texas Beef Initiative. We're not sure yet. Still trying to work those details out. But we will be going in heavy. We'll have speakers. There'll be elected officials that are coming out to speak. And also, I think some great Bitcoiners are going to talk as well and share why Texas needs to stop attacking this technology that's helping them so much to balance their grid. So if you want to be a part of that, it's a big lobby day. It'll be a great time. Going to have a ton of people there from Texas Blockchain Council, Digital Chamber, and Satoshi Action Fund. We're the three, excuse me, my numbers are off. My three groups that are putting that together. So I'd be excited for anyone to join us. That Eventbrite link is right there in the chat for everyone if they want to go.
Is it? I don't see it.
I dropped, does it block links on your thing automatically?
Yeah, it does, I think.
Okay. Well, I'll send it to you in the private chat and you can hopefully you can share it with your folks.
I'll paste it up when we leave here. I'll pull it into my sidebar here, so I'll bring it up.
And just so people know, it's like the third tweet on my main page. So if you go to my Twitter, there's like a link to the Eventbrite too. So it's the Don't Mess with Texas Innovation. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we're going to have it at the Capitol. So it should be good. Free food, free chance to engage with folks you like. And if you live in Texas, please go, because then we're going to potentially have you kind of come into the Capitol and help have conversations with policymakers there.
Awesome. I think it'll let me drop it in the chat, which I just did. So yeah, if you're in the live chat, then feel free to check that out. But yeah, thanks, Dennis. That's awesome. And I'll toss it to Lisa here. You get to close us out. Final thoughts, recommendations. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was fun. And Ben, I mean, I think this had to be your best Why Are We Bullish episode ever, right?
Well, I mean, you were on it, so of course it was. Why not?
It was amazing. It was fun. What do I recommend? I recommend that people who don't work in Bitcoin connect with somebody that does, and people that do work in Bitcoin, like Dennis. I DM him on Twitter. He responds all the time. Reach out to the folks that say something that you're interested in, or say something that you maybe don't understand, and find out more. I think the power of connection is what brings us together and keeps us together. I think we uniquely are fighting for the same things. You mentioned, after World War II, this sort of euphoria that was taking place in the United States. And I feel as though, even though we left the war era with the most gold in the world and we were the wealthiest nation, somehow we've gotten here where we're just completely bankrupt, beyond bankrupt. We have this, we have the possibility again to fortify our nation. I do think that this is a global, arms race of sorts in Bitcoin, because I think that it's a way to fortify our balance sheet, and stands for everything that matters to me as a Texan, and certainly as us, as citizens of democratic countries. Liberty, freedom, property rights, right? That is the basis of all human flourishing and energy. So liberty, freedom, property rights. It's critical for an advancing society. It's critical for us. It's critical for, you know, your 2 and 6-year-old to know that they're going to live in a place where they can learn and grow and speak freely and, you know, protect themselves with their own money.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, this has been a hell of a conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank the both of you and CK for coming. Hell of a conversation. I also want to give a shout out to, again, everybody in the chat. And actually, to be honest, especially the people that were, you know, bringing up the ordinal stuff and you know, quote unquote, shitting on Bitcoin Magazine for you know, the ordinals thing. I mean, it's important to be able to voice the things that you like and the things that you don't. And like, again, in the end, the market will decide with the economic reality of scarce block space what they care to do with it. But you know, it's all part of the conversation that leads to people making sound economic decisions with their own money. And so, you know, like people, we got, you know, Bitcoin in the chat. This is just, you know, one of the comments here, but, you know, nonetheless, you know, over at the Bitcoin channel there, you know, holding everybody's feet to the fire and saying, like, you know, is this a valuable use of Bitcoin block space? Is this, like, you know, the questioning, you know, should this be done? Should we be encouraging certain types of things? And, you know, those are good conversations to be had. Again, like, it's, if we don't have these discussions, then, you know, again, in the end, I think it's valuable to have these discussions regardless. And it makes people think more deeply about the proper allocation of their capital. I'll leave it there. But anyways, this is fantastic. Thank you both. Thank you to CK, and you're all welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Ben. Dennis, so fun to see you as always. I'll chat at you.
Great to see you, Lisa. Yeah, looking forward to it. And
Yeah.
Ben, as always, great to be on. Hopefully we can somehow find ourselves on the same airplane again.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
I'll see you guys both in Miami.
See you in Miami.
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you guys there. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Cheers. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This was a blast. I really enjoyed this one. This is a good one. Of course, if you can, like, subscribe, share, all those things help a ton. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Lots of fun stuff going on in the chat. And I got to give a shout out to not David Wong, David Wrong. We have his, I want to say his good twin here. There's always a good and an evil twin. Anyways, the the good twin, or the parody twin, is here in the chat. David Wrong. I can't wait for you to meet David Wong in the chat. It will be a showdown of epic proportions. But nonetheless, I love it when people make meme accounts for the chat. It's the best. So anyways, thank you for being here. Again, everybody, thank you for watching. Of course, if you want to help out the show, you can hit up the previously mentioned sponsors down below. Those were HodlHodl, CoinKite, Nunchuk, and Start9. They're all down here. If you're going to be down in Miami, or if you're thinking about being down in Miami, of course, you know, the website b.tc/conference. Again, it's a week from today. Tickets go up another $50. So if you're thinking about it, then yeah, jump on the site before next Friday, and at least it'll save you $50 from there. Also, you can use code btcsessions for 10% off the ticket price. That should help a little bit, knocking $85 off of that. And also, if you're going to be in Miami, Cold Card Workshop, just saying, it is on Wednesday, May 17th, prior to the conference. So the next day is Industry Day. So this is before any of the days of the conference start. So yeah, Wednesday, May 17th, it will be from 1 to 5 p.m. We're basically starting from scratch, getting you set up on a cold card, going through the whole setup process. How do you use it? How do you do air-gapped transactions with the SD card? How do you back it up and recover it? So we're going to wipe the device and then recover from scratch, so you have that knowledge and that expertise. Also, After that, we're going to dive into some of the advanced features. What is BIP85? How do you use a passphrase? All kinds of great stuff we're going to be touching on. So if you want to be one of the best Bitcoin cold card experts on the planet, come on down, and it should be a good time. There are 5 tickets left. I shit you not. Oh, wait. Yeah, no, I'm right. 5 tickets left. 5 tickets left to the event. I still have four cold card bundles. So if you do need to get your own device and all that, there's 4 of those as well. But yeah, 5 tickets left to the event. You can find it through my website. So you just go to btcsessions.ca. And over on the far right side, there are the in-person workshops. That'll take you to the BTC Pay server and you can grab a ticket there. So yeah, 5 of those left. I'm sure they'll be gone before conference time. So if you need one, grab it now. You can also book me there. If the free tutorial, by the way, all of the educational stuff that I make, and this includes stuff around the cold card, everything, it's all free. So what I'll say is no matter what, if you're looking to learn, you can do it for free. You can go to my YouTube. There are literally tutorials and everything. It will walk you through every step of the way. So who is this for? If you want, if you look at a video and you're like, holy shit, I can't just follow along with that. I need that interaction. I need that affirmation. I need, if anything comes up differently than it did in the video, I need somebody to like direct me in the right direction. That's more or less what this is for. And you can also book me for one-on-ones here on the website as well for private. And I do this all the time with people saying like, I just need you to be there to walk me through everything. So I'm confident the first time I do it and then I'm good. So anyways, yeah, btcsessions.ca, you can see all of that there. And with that, let's wrap it up. Of course, if you really liked what you saw, you can drop me a Bitcoin tip on my Strike page. You do not need a Strike account to use it. You can just head to strike.me/BTC sessions, type in any amount you like, hit the tip button. You'll be greeted with a Lightning invoice, or if you prefer, tap the arrow to the right. You'll see a regular Bitcoin QR code. With that, I am out. Have yourselves a wonderful day or evening. I'll see you guys next time for your daily session.
We have BTC sessions. Bitcoin is FU money. You can't stop it. Get yourself some Bitcoin and hold it yourself. Peer-to-peer exchange. You know, people are going to organically come to it and gravitate towards it, especially in the world we're living in now. It's incredible. It's a great tool, and I can't wait to see it proliferate everywhere.
HodlHodl the Bitcoin.